Hello and welcome to GameTech, and welcome to Left in the Arcade 7. In case you didn't know, this is the series that focuses on arcade games that were never ported or officially brought home. I don't want these games forgotten. Well, actually, I wouldn't mind if a couple of them were. Anyway, let's start with the beat 'em up. There are a lot of those that were brought home. Back in late 2017, we reviewed Konami's Crime Fighters from 1989. It's an interesting little beat 'em up that, of course, was never ported home. Well, it got a sequel in 1991 called Vendetta, but it's known as Crime Fighters 2 in Japan. This beat 'em up fixes most of the issues that Crime Fighters had, and it's a lot more enjoyable. Guess what? A girl has been kidnapped and you have to rescue her. You have a punch and a kick button. There isn't any jump button, but if you press both attack buttons at the same time, you can do a special move which often includes a jump kick. Fortunately, when you do this, it doesn't take any health off of your life meter. I'm honestly surprised that it doesn't. You can knock down enemies and keep pounding on them while they're down, which is fun because you know they deserve it. Yeah, that'll teach you to be evil! If you get knocked down, you'll stay down for a few seconds. But the cool thing is that you can still attack when you're down if there are any enemies nearby. You can collect lots of weapons that are dropped or found in crates or other smashable items. They're all fun to use, and unlike in the first game, you can pick the dropped weapon back up instead of having it disappear forever. There's also plenty of health items to find which weren't in the first game. A lot of the enemies do perhaps take too many hits, which means it can get a touch boring when you're just waiting for an enemy to die so you can move along, but fortunately this isn't a huge deal. The game is a touch short with only 5 stages plus a boss rush after that. I really like the graphics in this one. There's lots of color and the detail in the backgrounds is always fun to admire. There's a lot of graffiti in this game and some of it doesn't make a lot of sense. Slime balls rule, okay? I like this one that says, "Vince is innocent, pigs!" Like the cops are gonna read that and say, "Oh, okay, I guess maybe we should ease up on Vince a little." This one that says graffiti died is interesting because it itself is graffiti. Could be dead graffiti though, I guess. If you look quick right here before the final boss, it says Kilroy was here for all of you Styx fans. Anyone remember Styx? I used to love them when I was a kid. Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. You can't pet the dogs in this game, but you can definitely shoot them. The sound effects are perfectly fine, and the music is outstanding, which, come on, it's Konami, what did you expect? Bad music? Get out of here. The version in the US was censored to remove these guys. Kind of reminds me of a similar censorship that happened with Streets of Rage 3, only way before Streets of Rage 3 ever existed. Granted, Streets of Rage 3 doesn't feature dry humping as the main attack of its censored character. It is kind of funny though. Vendetta is a fun and interesting beat 'em up, and while it's not a long game, I would have loved to see this one come home on a compilation with other Konami beat 'em ups that were also left in the arcade. Here's Kung Fu Master. This game was never ported to a home console. Wait a minute, this is the wrong Kung Fu Master game. What we want here is the Kung Fu Master Jackie Chan by Kaneko, released in 1995. Kaneko? Kaneko? I don't know, who cares. This is a one-on-one fighting game featuring, well, Jackie Chan. Choose from a huge roster of 6 different characters. I can't believe they fit so many characters on this selection screen. After that, you can choose who you fight. Notice that Jackie Chan himself is nowhere to be seen here. You have to play as one of these nobodies. Actually, they're not nobodies. They've appeared in various kung fu movies, so you may in fact recognize them. The game uses 4 buttons, 2 punch and 2 kicks. Holding back blocks, kind of. The gameplay is very difficult and the CPU can figure out everything you're trying to do immediately. You have to play very defensively, let the computer attack, back up, and then hit your opponent right after they attack. Playing offensively will get you killed very quickly. I was able to have the most luck with the character known as Kim Marie, who's played by the actress named, well, Kim Marie. Her victory screens are something else. Just look at her face. She is so happy that she won. After you win a few matches, you can actually choose to fight Jackie Chan. Needless to say, he's practically invincible. The game reminds me of Way of the Warrior on the 3DO, only a bit sharper looking. Like that one, this has stages that zoom in and out. It also has fatalities, but they're pretty tame as Jackie Chan doesn't really like things too bloody or gory. The graphics themselves aren't anything special for their time and honestly probably a bit dated for 1995. The sound is a bit shrill but otherwise fun to listen to. I might as well mention the follow-up called Jackie Chan Fists of Fire, which was another 1995 game from Kaneko. This is more of an update to Kung Fu Master than anything. You have the same selectable characters, but many have been tinted one color or another for some reason. I guess players in the arcade love the hell out of that and are more likely to pump in some quarters if your guy's skin is tinted blue. That's money in the bank, my friend. What's more is that now you can select 3 different versions of Jackie Chan to play as. They all basically play the same from what I can tell, and I'm betting the only reason there are 3 of them is to make it look like there's more than 7 characters total. Jackie even shows up as a regular opponent and you can easily beat him. Of course, he practically acts like he let you win.
You're getting better.
The gameplay's been rebalanced, and yes, that is some good news. Unfortunately, the game is also a lot slower. The same stages are here, but again, they've been tinted with some colors now, so you'll pump in those quarters. The sound and music seems mostly the same. Overall, this is definitely the better of the 2 games, but neither is as good as the Jackie Chan games that showed up on the NES and the TurboGrafx-16. I can't say I'm sad that these never got ported home. Okay, so far we've had a beat 'em up and a couple of fighting games, but what about run and guns and platformers? Yeah. Up next is the generically named Crime City. Crime City from Taito, released in 1989. Yes, that's how the company's name is pronounced. This is basically a side-scrolling run and gun where you control a plainclothes cop who shoots down bad guys with his gun and other random guns that he picks up on the street. The gameplay immediately reminds me of eSWAT, Shinobi, Rolling Thunder, Outrun. Okay, maybe not Outrun. Why did I even say that? You have a life bar, but don't get excited. You'll take damage if you touch enemies or get hit by a car, but if a single bullet or other object tossed by the enemy touches you, it's instant death. You can jump, and if you hold up while pressing jump, you can high jump. You don't have unlimited ammo, so you need to pick up more by grabbing the gun icons. You don't have any special moves, and there's not even any ninja magic, only your training as a highly decorated police officer. Each level has you foiling some type of crime, like a bank robbery. All along the way, the criminals are out to get you. I like how in this stage, a helicopter lowers you down onto some cars so you can platform your way across. Of course, there are thugs with guns waiting on top of almost every car you see. That's right, they're just casually waiting on cars speeding down the freeway for a hotshot cop with a chip on his shoulder to come wandering by. I'm kind of curious why the helicopter couldn't have just taken him directly to the bank. No, it has to drop him on a speeding highway. A couple of times you'll actually face towards the screen to shoot enemies down in the distance. This can be a bit weird, but it's nice to see a bit of variety. The gameplay itself controls well and it feels great, but this is a huge quarter muncher. It quickly becomes quite difficult to avoid bullets, and you need to keep track of so much different stuff all at once if you hope to beat it on a single quarter. The graphics are decent, but by 1989 standards they were already dated. Everything looks and moves a bit stiff, and there's no parallax scrolling to speak of, which is quite odd. Shinobi had arrived 2 years earlier, and it blows this one away graphically. In fact, eSWAT and Rolling Thunder all preceded this one, and I feel this looks the worst of them all. Still kinda decent though. The music isn't bad. It's by Taito's popular Zuntata sound team, and the game sounds close to what you'd hear on the Sega Genesis. Alas, it's in mono, unsurprisingly. The game offers up 6 stages, so it's not the longest if you just plow your way through. I'm a bit surprised that Taito didn't bring this home to the Genesis. They seem to want to bring everything else out for the console, and this probably would have done well. Though for home play, I think they should have implemented that life bar for getting shot as well. Maybe take one hit and be mostly okay, and then the next hit kills you unless you find a power-up. It would have also been nice if they added a parallax layer or two in a few of the stages, which home players expected by that point. I don't think this game would have been compromised very much if it were a 4 or 8 meg cartridge. Oh, and this is another game where you can't pet the dogs, but you can shoot them. This is DD Crew from Sega, which was released in 1991. This one is a beat 'em up, and I'm gonna be real with you, it's one of the worst beat 'em ups I've ever played. The characters that you can choose from are all uninteresting. The enemies that you fight are all boring. You have one attack button plus a jump. Not to mention that the control is laggy and just all around bad. It's not enjoyable at all to play, and honestly I couldn't play it for more than 15 minutes because it's just so bad, and not in a good way. That said, there are a few good things here. Unfortunately, none of that involves the gameplay. I like how you fight the first stage boss on this amusement park ride as it keeps going around and around. That's a cool idea. It would have been even cooler if the physics pushed you a bit back and forth as it swung around. After that, you're fighting inside of a gondola. Now you're out on top of it and it looks kind of cool. Oh, and most of the music is completely sampled. The music itself, though, is only okay, and there's not a lot of it as you'll hear the same tracks in future stages. Not sure why they spent such a huge memory budget on the game's music. Ultimately, even the music is completely ruined by the game's awful sound effects. This is what you're going to be listening to the entire time you're playing. Yikes, let me tell you, that is unpleasant. And yes, there's an elevator section. Sega is often praised for their amazing arcade games, but you never hear about their bad ones. They seem to have a lot of arcade games that are just bad. As much of a Sega fan as I am, the truth needs to be known. Stay away from this one. Here's Magical Cat Adventure from Win Techno, released in 1993. This one only ever appeared in Japan and Europe. This is the only game that the Japanese company Win Techno ever made that I can find. Anyway, as you can see, you play as a cat and this is a platformer. You walk on your back two legs because hey, that's what all cats do. Since you're a magical cat on an adventure, you can shoot projectiles. There are treasure chests flying around, and if you shoot one, you can get a different style of projectile attack. Most of them feel pretty weak. In fact, the only one I really like is this one because it's not super small. As you play, you'll find yourself changing weapons even if you don't want to. You can collect coins and sometimes gems for some reason. I assume the coins give you an extra cat if you get 100 of them, but I've never been able to hang on to that many. I'm not sure what the gems do for you. They certainly don't give out extra continues, only your quarters will do that. Actually, they won't since this game wasn't released in the United States, but you know what I mean. The stages can be pretty long, and eventually you'll make it to a boss fight. The control can feel pretty laggy at times, almost a quarter of a second of lag from my guess. This doesn't help the game at all. On top of that, it takes a cue from Sonic and features very strange momentum-based controls. That means if he starts out on an incline, he can barely move at all, just like Sonic's weird physics. He gets going pretty fast, and good luck reacting in time with this laggy control. All in all, the gameplay seems rather generic. I really do like all of the color and detail in the graphics though, at least in the backgrounds. You gotta admit, it looks pretty nice. All in all, I'm rather surprised that this is an arcade game, especially one that wasn't ported home. It just looks and plays like a home game. You don't usually see stuff like this in the arcade. But hey, it's still 30 to 40 times better than Bubsy. Yeah, I'll die on that hill. Don't you hate that saying? Alright, we've been looking at a decent variety of genres, so let's continue to diversify with one of the rarest racing games ever made. This one is called Slipstream, and it was released in 1995. This F1 game is interesting in quite a few ways. First of all, it's from Capcom. Capcom isn't exactly known for making racing games. Secondly, it's a Capcom arcade game that uses Sega arcade hardware, specifically the System 32 board. That's the same hardware that runs Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder. Next, this arcade game was only ever released in Latin America, though some sources say it was specific to Brazil. The menus feature a mix of Portuguese, English, and Japanese. This is an extremely rare game with only about 150 known units that existed. Daytona and Ridge Racer already existed in the arcades at this time, so it was interesting to see a 2D-based racing game like this that doesn't use polygons. The gameplay is fairly straightforward. Choose a mode, choose one of 8 different cars, and race. You have a shift lever to select between high and low gear. If you ride behind one of the evil enemy racers, you charge up your turbo meters and then get a boost of speed when you move out from behind their car. But the enemy can do the same to you and even each other. Different cars have different amounts of turbo for their slipstream. This is a rather difficult game that just barely gives you enough time. One wrong move and you'll be retired as your timer runs out, even if you're in first or second place. Place first and you move on to the next track, and there are a total of 4. There's also another mode where you have to pass a certain number of enemies within your 2-lap race. The good news is that you get to worry about the timer too. This mode is pretty fun, but again it's pretty tough. Then there's another mode where you can choose to race on one of the 4 tracks against one other opponent. You'll likely be boosting past each other a lot during these races. Overall, the game is super fun, but the unforgiving difficulty might bring that down a hair for some people. I'm pretty sure playing on an actual arcade unit would be a lot better, but good luck doing that. The graphics are really good, and they still look great even in the age of 3D racers made of polygons. Everything is super fast, though here it looks like I might be getting a bit too close to the Opera House in Sydney, or maybe the water in front of it. The sound and music are both full of energy and super fun. I like what they bring to the game. It's just sad that this was never included on any compilations from Capcom. Just because hardly anyone has ever heard of it doesn't mean people wouldn't enjoy playing it. Come on, Capcom, give us more compilations of your arcade games similar to what you were doing in the PS2 era, and include this one on there. Finally, we have a weird one called The Crystal of Kings, and it was made by Brezasoft in 2001. This is a beat-em-up that plays a lot like Golden Axe. It's another fairly rare game that was only ever released at arcades in Asia and Australia. Despite that, it's all in English. There's not a lick of Australian text anywhere. Go figure. Probably a good thing, because I can't read Australian anyway. Now, just who the hell is, or should I say was, Brezasoft? It was a small company made up of ex-SNK developers. They made this game on their own arcade hardware, but the company would later be purchased by SNK Playmore. They thought they could escape SNK. Get back to work, bitches. They'd eventually work on Metal Slug 4 and 5. Anyway, like I said, this one plays much like Golden Axe. You have a choice of 4 different characters with their own attack styles and magic attacks. The generic sword dude isn't bad, but the generic blonde chick is even better because she's a bit faster. Oh, and just like Golden Axe, she has the best magic. The other 2 characters feel a tad useless. In fact, I just kept killing myself as this guy just so I could play as someone else, anyone else. I probably wouldn't do this though if I were actually spending my own money to play this game in an arcade. The magic is also similar to Golden Axe in that you collect vials to fill your magic bar. The more full it is, the stronger your magic attack is. Along the way, you'll find fairies which you can free and then collect. They'll help you in various ways. They can attack the enemy, constantly give you life points or magic points and stuff like that. Be careful though, because there's an evil fairy that will reverse your controls for about 10 seconds. Oh, and get this, you have status effects. It's kind of weird seeing these outside of an RPG. The controls are okay, but the gameplay itself doesn't feel anywhere near as smooth as Golden Axe. The graphics are chock full of pre-rendered sprites and backgrounds. It definitely has an interesting look. I am really surprised though that they went this route. Pre-rendered graphics were all the rage in 1994 through maybe 1997 or so. But this was 2001, the PlayStation 2 is already out, so it was an odd choice. This has got to be one of the last, if not the last game to use pre-rendered graphics like this. Until ActRaiser Resurrection came out anyway. Still, I do kind of like how it looks in a lot of places, especially during the boss fights. The sound is a bit tinny and it feels like maybe the sample rate is rather low. I'm not a big fan of how it sounds, though you do get used to it after a few levels. Still, the game does try hard to do its best Yngwie Malmsteen impression during this boss fight. It's no wonder that this one was never ported home. It was made by a small company, it had a tiny run, and it's not a tremendously exciting game. Our only hope for it to come home would be if SNK released some collections of their non-Neo Geo games. But they already did that, and guess what? It wasn't included. No big loss, really. There you go, that was 8 more games that never made it home, at least not yet. I do wish my emulation abilities were a little bit better because there are a lot of more visually complex games that I could show you, but as of right now I can't. It's not just about the hardware, but more my lack of interest in getting the emulators and ROMs all working together and running properly. That's just really not my scene. But if it's yours, there are a lot of cool games that you could try. So, what are some other games that have been left in the arcade that perhaps I haven't covered yet? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack.
Do you want to save your games to a memory card, but you're sick of swapping it out with a rumble pack?
I sure am.
Well, then just quit swapping them out and leave the memory card in there.
But I still want the buzzy.
Well, did you know you could attach the memory card to the console itself?
No?
It's true. Just power your system off, take out this dumb thing, and insert your memory card. Now throw that dumb old thing away. You're good to go. Power up and have fun.
Nothing happens.
That's because you just broke your Nintendo 64, you idiot!
But you told me that—
Do you just listen to any random disembodied voice that shows up out of nowhere telling you to do stuff?
Yeah?
Then you deserve this!
Won't somebody help me?